6 unique facts about the Royal Palace of Thailand, the Grand Palace. Thailand is now one of the most sought-after countries by world tourists. Among the many attractions it has, the Grand Palace is the most popular. This 218,000 square meter building complex was originally the official residence of the King of Thailand since 1782. Hundreds of years of existence make it a unique long history. Here are 6 facts about the Grand Palace that you must know. 1. The Grand Palace was built in 1782. The construction of the Grand Palace was carried out since 1782 under the reign of King Phutthayotfa Chulalok, or known as King Rama I. At that time, King Rama I, who succeeded in seizing power from King Taksin, wanted to build the capital city for his new dynasty, the Chakri dynasty. The capital, which was originally located in Donburi, was moved to the east side of Bangkok, where the Grand Palace is currently located. The Grand Palace was then used as an office as well as a home for King Rama I. The Grand Palace continued to be added and improved in the next king's reign, especially by King Chulalok. In 1925, the royal family and government began to discontinue the Grand Palace, especially after the monarchy was abolished in 1932. 2. The Grand Palace was not originally a sacred site. The Grand Palace is referred to as a sacred tourist site, so visitors are required to follow some dress codes. For example, you have to wear a shirt with sleeves and long pants, then the prohibition on clothing made from see-through. The Grand Palace is considered the spiritual heart of the Kingdom of Thailand, or one of the most important Buddhist temples in Thailand since hosting the Emerald Buddha. Whereas previously, between 1782 and 1925, the Grand Palace was used as the royal residence, the Ministry of War, the Thai Mint, the royal court, and other government administrative purposes. 3. The king ran out of funds and lack of building materials. Today tourists see the Grand Palace as a very magnificent tourist attraction. However, it turned out that King Rama I had run out of funds and material shortages during the construction process. This condition forced them to build palaces using wood. In fact, the palace is also fenced simply using wood. Years after the ceremonial transfer of the king to the new palace, they began to replace wood with stone. King Rama I ordered his soldiers to demolish all buildings except the temple in the old capital, Ayutthaya. 4. The Temple of the Emerald Buddha is actually a chapel. Within the Grand Palace complex there is a chapel which is more popularly called the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. This royal chapel is located within the confines of the palace and was built in 1783. It is a tradition to have a chapel in the courtyard of the royal palace to be used as a residence for monks. The chapel in the Grand Palace is surrounded by a 4-sided chain of walled porticos with 7 distinct gates. 5. Grand Palace adopts European architecture. King Rama I asked an English architect for help in the construction of the Grand Palace. This building is finally synonymous with the typical Italian Renaissance building style. The Temple of the Emerald Buddha originally had a distinctly Thai architecture compared to the Grand Palace as a whole. However, when King Rama V took power, he renovated it in the style of Siamese and Manha roofs. 6. The inside of the Grand Palace is closed to the public. The interior of the Grand Palace was a special residence for the king's wife and children. This area is inhabited entirely by girls and boys under the age of puberty. Since the first, not just anyone is allowed to enter the area within the Grand Palace. Even now it was very secretive, even though there were no longer any nobles living in it. The Grand Palace is an icon for Thailand. The splendor of the building makes this tourist attraction always crowded by thousands of tourists. Interested in visiting it?